right, she's off the hook now. It is 6:30. So we'll call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Nick. All right, let's move on to the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes requested? If none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second. All right, been properly moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, passes unanimous. Thank you. We'll continue to move right along. Superintendent's report. Dr. Rodriguez.
Yes, got quite a few things, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. Very first and foremost, I have a certificate of achievement for Don Kessinger for completing his board member certification and training. So, Sarah. Appreciate that. Several things going on, as you can imagine, being toward the end of the year, a lot of positive news going. So if you haven't had a chance to look at the good news, please make sure you do so. There are any number of different things in there that give you a little bit more description. I'll just kind of briefly talk about a couple things. We recently had our Hall of Fame at one of the track meets. Very glad that we were still able to do that. Normally we do that in the fall, obviously, and so to put that towards the back end, but it's something that, as you know, Steve Robertson started, and it's become obviously a very point of pride in our district for sure. And so very glad that we were still able to hold the Hall of Fame. I unfortunately had a commitment on that evening and wasn't able to attend, but I know Dr. Butler was there and was able to kind of be in our stead a little bit in terms of administration. Of course, Greg Linhart running that and coordinating that this year. So it was extremely well done, and always loved that event. A lot of student activities going on toward the back end of this year. We have honors night. Many of you were able to be there. It was another fantastic event. Nice to be able to do that, see the kids in person, being able to talk to them, go through the awards. Several of you presented. It's always a wonderful evening to be able to honor our students. Math relays, that's in good news. Again, a lot of really cool things. I mean, if you don't know about the math relays, these are things that kids do on a Saturday, and basically it's like math. They just go in and they have competitions around math, and it's just a really cool event. We were not able to send high school teams this year, or secondary teams in terms of the high school for a variety of different reasons, but our middle school teams did extremely well, and you can see in there the relay team took a gold medal in several things. So fantastic news. But again, anytime our kids are doing educational things on a weekend like that, it's amazing. And our staff was, of course, there doing supporting them. So we appreciate that. District track meet, if you haven't heard, which I assume that you should have by now, but we won yet another district title last weekend, and we will go on to sectionals this weekend in Odessa, I believe. That's correct. So very excited about that as we begin another run toward a state title, hopefully. The play, if you weren't able to attend or understand what they did, they sold tickets. They recorded it, they videoed it, and were able to stream that to individuals who bought tickets, and were able to click and watch that from anywhere. I told her this personally, but I am amazed at what Molly Mokler at the high school has been able to do this year with all the things going on. And I know she's not by herself. She's got a whole team of people that help her. But from doing this in the fall and have actually being able to put on a play in the fall via Zoom was an amazing event, and how they did that. And so just really excited that our kids were still going to be able to participate and do fine arts. Band concert was Tuesday night. Again, being able to know that our kids were able to be there in person. I talked to Mr. Jakes right afterwards and was like, how'd that feel? He's like, oh my gosh, he said that felt amazing. It's been a long time, so you start to feel like things are hopefully coming back close to where we want them to be, and our kids can start being out and participating. again, more things and good news and a lot of things in there. Year-end dates, obviously activities, we've got a lot of things going on. The last day of school is 2 weeks from tomorrow. Graduation is on Monday night. You actually have tickets on your stand. I'm not sure that anybody's ever refused a board member getting in the building if they didn't have a ticket, but you do have the ticket before you, and that's Monday evening. Looking forward to that, obviously, and being able to do an actual graduation ceremony like we have been for many years. So traditional ceremony, looking forward to that. As most of you, I think almost all of you were able to participate in some way, shape, or form, but we had staff recognition and appreciation. 1 week was basically kind of more on the buildings, and the buildings did a lot of their activities and such, and the next week was the district. And so the district had a day, every day was a little bit different. We had different colors for every day to honor different groups. But then obviously a lot of you were able to go out, especially on Monday and Tuesday, and either hand out certificates to all of our employees or able to hand out t-shirts. You have a t-shirt at your desk, the same one that we handed out to the staff. Wednesday was food truck day, and we had a couple of food trucks up there. Unfortunately, there was a long line. It took a lot longer than it should have to get the food, but number one, it was a gorgeous day. It wasn't hot, it wasn't cold, and it wasn't like this. It wasn't raining, so our staff were able to be outside. They were able to talk to each other. And while I heard well, yeah, it's been a long time, I had to wait about an hour, but it was nice because I got to talk to all the people that I hadn't seen in a long time. I actually got to be outside. We got them. So there was at least that, and the food was really good. So all those things were fantastic. And we had an amazing team in the employee recognition group. I know Dawn is on that team as well, but several teachers and individuals that worked incredibly hard. Sheba Clark is who led that. Ms. Deanda is on that group as well, leading from central office. And just that team in particular, and Sheba Clark taking that on, was really a lot to do this year. How do we do this in the right way? But at the same time, we always want to honor our staff, but we just weren't able to put everybody together in one room like we normally do. So felt like it went really well, had a lot of positive feedback around it. And I think it's going to be a good way for us to start ending up the year. COVID update, obviously, we're kind of on the backside of a lot of different things. A couple things that I would highlight. Number one is, as I told you, the last meeting, all of our students were returned on April 26th. So now we've had several weeks of that being done, which has been fantastic to have our kids in the buildings and to see them. That obviously has not been without its challenges as well. So there still continues to be multiple challenges around that, but I still don't hear any feedback around. I wish we wouldn't have brought kids back. But certainly there's still just a lot of challenges that surround that. So we continue to work through those and know that we just have to get to the end of the year. But our students are still having a benefit of being in the classrooms. Some challenges, obviously, last week, whenever Kansas City released, well, the CDC released their information and guidance on masks. And then when Kansas City decided to make their recommendation in the middle of the week, Jackson County, we had a conversation with them on Tuesday, and they were not planning on making any changes. And then they flipped that around, and on Friday decided to release that they were lifting their mask mandate. So we had some immediate challenges with that on Friday, which led us to obviously releasing some information on Monday to our staff. Number one, making sure that they knew that we were not going to make any changes. I refused to make any changes 1 week before graduation that could potentially have any ramifications for anybody to not being able to participate. And I have heard some things around that from other school districts. So I wanted to make sure that we kept that in place. Certainly no arguments from my team and no arguments from Mary Rhodes when we had that conversation with her as well. So we will continue to do all that stuff. We sent that to our parents as well, so they knew, because we were already getting some parents coming in and saying that they didn't have to wear masks anymore. Once again, our schools are going to be a little bit different. They're not going to be treated the exact same way as everything else. So we'll continue to do that for the remaining couple weeks of school. We'll retool and we'll reevaluate for summer school and see if we're going to continue to use our same protocols for summer school. And then obviously we have a little bit more time to see what the CDC and other groups decide to do before the start of the next school year. So more to come on those particular things, but obviously that was a big piece of what kind of happened last week. So again, we got 2 weeks of school left, graduation on Monday. We're heading toward the end, and there was no reason for us to make any changes at this particular point in time. Last piece would just be board priorities. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on in terms of end of the year. So happy to answer any questions. A lot of other things have been going on in terms of meetings. So there's a few things that may be a little extended on the community side and a few things that may be a little bit more limited in some other areas, just end of the year and trying to get a lot of other components done. But a lot of end of the year meetings leading into some things that we're looking at retooling into this end of this year into next school year, especially with the transition to a new team behind me as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I would say there's just a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, and we're heading toward the end, but a lot of really neat things with our kids, and to see them in the buildings again, I can't say enough how wonderful it has been to have them back. And we'll look forward to retooling some things, doing some things differently into next school year, and provide some more updates to you. Happy to answer any questions. Other than that, that's the superintendent's report.
Just one question, with school coming to an end, and I understand we're not lifting the mask up mandate until it ends, but you have activities still going throughout the summer. What are the plans for the activities? Will you eventually lift that, or will you keep that in place for some time?
I think it depends on the activity, and it depends on where we are in the summer, because right now, I think we're a little bit different depending upon if we're outside, if we're inside. So like when we were at the retirement celebration the other day, it's a little bit different being outside. So I think we feel a little bit more comfortable being outside, and whether you're in school or not in school, that's a little bit different. I think if we're inside, then there's potential that would still be in place for a little while, but we'll know more as we get into summer school, because that'll be the next big thing that comes around before we get into July and all the major activities and stuff that starts back up. So I think we'll know a lot more by then, but I will particularly see that the outdoor activities and things probably would be a recommended, not required. I could see that being a possibility, or not having to have them if they're outside, but we're not quite there yet, but that's what I'm thinking so far.
Okay, because I think you got basketball and things like that coming up, where you're gonna have tournaments and things like that going on. Just curious on, would students be able to,
Well, if you remember during the season, students, while they were playing, were not required to wear masks. It was the adults in the buildings and students that when they were on the bench that had to wear the masks. So I wouldn't see any change to that immediately, but I would think as we get into later in July or early in July, when some of those camps start, we'll have to just kind of reevaluate and see where we are in terms of that.
With regards to graduation, where are we at this moment on attendees and numbers of attendees and that? Are we still at 6?
Everything got opened up. And so once Independence Center released the last of their requirements, I believe it was a Monday, we made sure that the seniors knew that they could have the full 10 tickets. And so there's no attendance requirement at that point in terms of us restricting numbers.
Perfect.
And we kept telling people, just be patient, like it'll get there. Just
right.
It's a lot easier for us to open that up than to take them back. So yeah. We were very cautious about that approach. So
a few social media posts, people saying, I need one more ticket for graduation. Are they willing to give theirs up? And I was thinking the same thing, like, just wait.
I saw one today saying, I've got 5 for anybody that wants it. We're like, man, I hope you're just giving those to somebody and not
right.
the highest bidder kind of thing. But I know in the past people have sold tickets to graduation. So it's just, it just happens. So
yeah,
there's a black market for graduation tickets.
Any other
Underground.
Now you know, right?
Right.
You could have retired like years ago, right?
Right.
Hey,
So,
I'm sure
so
you
tonight on
could
every one of your
know
Facebook
this
posts, I'm gonna see,
Xerox.
I got one ticket for graduation for a
All right, any other questions on that? All right, nothing else. We'll move on to the standing dates then, Dr. Rodriguez.
Yeah, so like I said, we have graduation, and I will say the last day of school, obviously 2 weeks from tomorrow, but then the regular closed meeting being on, open and closed meeting being on June 24th.
Perfect. Before we move on to the finance committee report, I would like to address one thing that Dr. Rodriguez did not in his report. And I forgot as well. So there is an AASA governing board in this country, And it's broken up into several different regions, and each region has 2 representatives. And our own Dr. Rodriguez has been elected to one of the representatives of our region. So I wanted to say congratulations and thank you for that.
Excited to, we will actually go in July, and we will go as part of that governing board, and we will be in Washington DC and actually going to the Capitol and talking to our legislators, but also meeting with the national AASA with all these individuals from all the states coming together and talking about where we are in education and what's kind of happening in the future and the organization. So very, very proud to represent Missouri and looking forward to it, really looking forward to it.
Well, we are thankful that you are doing that, and it's okay to toot your own horn sometimes.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, we will move on to the finance committee and report then, Mr. Green.
Okay, the finance committee met May 18th, this Wednesday at 5:15 PM. In attendance was myself, Chair, Anne Marie Cook, Assistant Superintendent. There were no audience participation. Cook asked if there were any questions related to items on the May 20th regular open meeting. There were none. The committee inspected representative warrants. Mr. Green and myself examined all warrants were 15,000. The district purchasing cards and expense and reimbursement warrants. Ms. Cook responded to questions. Based on the examination, the finance committee recommended that the warrants be approved by the Board of Education. The meeting adjourned at 6 PM.
All right, thank you for that information. We will move right along to recapitulation of funds. Dr. Rodriguez.
Yeah, got a few updates here. So Ms. Cook.
Yeah, the packet before you is the financials through the month of April. On the revenue side, we're still looking pretty strong. We're up about $950,000 compared to this time last year. There's some things with the timing of receipts, but primarily that's due to our current taxes. I think I shared with you last month that we were trending in a favorable way. At the end of April, year-to-date receipts had exceeded 22.5 million, and we were at 99.58% of our budget. Whereas in comparison, last year, we were a little over 93%. So that has come in strong this year, so that has certainly assisted us. On the expenditure side, we are down on our expenditures quite a bit. Payroll's right where we want it. You know, that's our kind of our the landmark that we look at, and it's right on target with our cycle. At the end of April, we did have a surplus for the operating year of about $6.8 million, but sadly, that will dwindle as the year goes on, as our expenditures will significantly outpace our revenues for the rest of the year. So we're drawing into a close, and we'll talk a little bit more about where we're going to end up and what that looks like as part of the 3-year forecast later in the meeting, but I'm happy to respond to any questions you have.
Great. Any questions from that? All right, as usual, it was riveting, and you explained it very well. I appreciate you.
Riveting.
Always on the agenda.
We get entertainment tonight. This is awesome.
Well, Lori won't sing.
Yes.
Yet. All right, we will move right along to audience participation. Ms. Myers, do we have anyone registered?
No one registered, Madam President.
All right, fantastic. Well, then we'll move to consent agenda, and I will entertain a motion.
Move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, been properly moved and second to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, raise your hand, please. Any opposed? All right, passes unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving right along for our action discussion agenda, student success focus area.
Very excited to have this conversation. And CNI update, several different updates and components. So definitely should be riveting. So
I don't know if I can be as riveting
Dr.
as
King.
a recapitulation of funds.
Hey, I enjoy having some
No
fun.
chance.
That
No
is
chance.
absolutely riveting. I like it.
So first up, I am going to introduce the ever entertaining Dr. Harris, and she is going to have a presentation for us on the Martin City K-8 rebrand for next year. So Dr. Harris.
All right, hello, greetings, everyone. It's great to be here tonight. And thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. So I am here to inform you a little bit, as well as get you just as excited as I am for our rebranding and our reorganizing of Martin City K-8. So, and we've got one school and one vision. And Shiva Clark helped me a lot to kind of discover what would be the best message to convey to our families and patrons and our students and staff, and that's what we came up with. So basically, it's a plan to provide our families with one K through 8th grade model. So I'm going to talk a little bit, go ahead and go to the next one. So why the need for change? So Martin City is two very distinct schools. There's an elementary school and a middle school. And we really operate in two different, very distinct ways. Up until this point, not even all staff, as I discovered, knew each other. I had a teacher early on in the year report that a parent was looking for me in the hallway, and it was actually a middle school teacher. So it was that profound that we needed a change. So go ahead and go to the next one, please. So kind of the journey to get to this point, about 3 years ago now, I envisioned myself being the leader at Martin City and taking on a K-8 building. And I had a conversation with Dr. Rodriguez about it and what I wanted that to look like, and just the opportunities that a K-8 building provides for staff and students. And so right now, this is our Martin City vision, and I'll give you just a moment to read it, but this is something that I've really put in front of staff this year to really own it. And I'm very proud of that. And I'm proud of the work that we've done this far in our rebranding. And I know that we're going to be successful in moving forward. Okay, so here's where we're going. One vision, or I'm sorry, one school, one vision. So we will make some changes to our programs, and we will make a lot of adjustments in what we're doing in the school day, as well as what we are providing just for students and staff. Okay, so there's a lot of advantages, and I've done a lot of research into, and the research page is the very last slide here, but I've done a lot of research into what makes K-8 schools work and why they are so successful, because there's a high majority of K-8 buildings that are highly successful and with our same demographics, whether that's rural areas, suburban areas, or even urban. So, and here's just some advantages. So same schedule for families and siblings, less transition time from new grade levels, stronger relationships between teachers and students, better alignment of curriculum and teaching needs. Students feel safer with less discipline and behavior problems threatening their learning, continued academic supports with familiar teachers, opportunities for student partnerships and peer mentoring, opportunities for student leadership, all students riding the school bus together, experience higher levels of self-esteem, and students tend to have significantly higher scores in reading and math. So these are just a few, but definitely ones that are important enough that we make these changes at Martin City. Go ahead. Okay, so of course there's challenges, and we've made a lot of headway through most of them. So the change of the school time. So everybody will be on what used to be the middle school time. So we will change from 8:10 to 3:10 school day, K-8. So that's kind of the biggest change that the community will feel. Transportation was an issue, but Adam Schwartz is amazing, and he figured all of that out and how we could route our buses and get everybody to school at the same time. Building scheduling as far as arrival and dismissal and lunchtime, and we worked through all of that. And then Link, of course, because we needed them on board to support all the extra children earlier in the morning and still have them stay later in the afternoon. So all of those things kind of came together. And then the last thing here is the community support. So this is a packet of the communication that I'll share with families. And we're going to start tonight, actually, and then we'll just be several different, you're welcome, several different days and times that will share more correspondence with them, but everything's in here. And so again, here's just some more possibilities that my building leadership team, I kind of took this to them first before I even shared it with all the staff, just the changes that I wanted to do. And this is kind of the possibilities that we came up with, even as a building leadership team, that would really give our students and staff some advantages and things to really look forward to. So I won't read through all of those, but just so you can see some of the highlights that we can expect for our students. Okay. And then next steps. So again, the community communication, any anticipated concerns that I get from parents, I'm thinking that they might be concerned with kindergartners and eighth graders being on the same bus. Some behavior issues, things like that. But we have high expectations for our students. And I still think that it's the right move to make. So, and of course, we're going to have our beautiful new secure entry and our new office suite. So it's just a great time to make a big change like this. And that's really all I have for you tonight.
Question I really want to ask. I was curious, have you spoken to parents as far as changing to this? I mean, I know what I would think as a parent, but what has been some of the feedback from the parents?
We haven't yet. So
Okay.
I wanted to come tonight and share with you all and get your feedback, and all of this communication will start this evening.
And then your plan, why don't you talk about that real quick? Your
Sure.
plan for that.
Sure. So next Tuesday, I'm going to hold a Zoom community forum and kind of go through a similar presentation. And then next Thursday, I'm going to do like a parking lot public forum where people can come and ask their questions.
So you said you were anticipating what their issues might be, and you touched on some of them, but is there anything else that you perceive is gonna be an issue?
I really don't. I think the big ones will be just the time change itself, and then just the bus or the discipline issue. You know, if they're just concerned with kindergartners being around eighth graders, and I understand completely, but you know, our children know how to behave and can be model students, and they can definitely be supportive of their younger siblings.
Yeah, I imagine the time issue, you'll have just as many people who are happy about
Yeah.
the changes you will.
Yeah, and another thing that I read in the research that I was doing is staff attendance rates are much lower because it gives them that like extra time in the afternoon for appointments and things like that. So I just am overwhelmed by all the advantages and the positive things that I've discovered in this. So I'm very anxious. I'm anxious to tell the community. I'm anxious for the feedback, and I know we're going to start off with a solid plan in place. So
Did you have much pushback from your staff?
none.
Good.
Yeah, nothing at all.
Other questions? I think there's just great opportunity for the older ones to be mentors to the younger ones on buses and things like that. So
Yes, ma'am, I agree.
I mean, of course, I grew up with salt house. So yeah, you want little kids to big kids and, you know, so I mean, different things like that. But at the same time, as a parent, my kids went to a small school that they went at the same time.
Sure.
I couldn't fathom trying to make sure they got there at one time, 30 minutes, another time, and things like that. So to me, I think there's so many advantages that, and I think the spin, like I said, is just being the mentor buddy system or whatever you try to figure out. I mean, I think those opportunities are there, and I think you're right. If you expect more, you'll get more out of the kids. So yeah, I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
I know we sent something to you pretty early on. Since then, a lot of different meetings and a lot of logistics, because that really was where the challenges were going to be. She had buy-in from her staff pretty early on. It was logistics, you know, could we change our bus routes? I mean, Adam's on the call tonight and presenting a little later, but We had a lot of conversations around transportation, and how are we gonna redo those kinds of logistical kinds of pieces, a few curriculum things, a few meetings, and a few other things that are pretty standard for all elementaries and stuff like that, but there was nothing that we didn't feel like we could overcome.
And there was one concern that our K-5 focus students, because their program would start later. So the students at Martin City will just have an extended day for their focus time. So we were able to work through that. I think Dr. King's the one that thought of that. So we were able to figure out a plan to, make sure that they could remain in that program as well.
So it's funny how I feel like sometimes we're just on the same page. So I had typed out, oh, all the kids on the same bus, and then you commented about the bus. So you mentioned that the kids are just good students and they know how to behave, but what strategies are you going to employ to ensure that they do have a good experience?
Sure.
Kindergarten versus, 8th grade.
Sure. So, and I actually talked to Adam a little bit about this already, but talking about like putting siblings together on the bus, the younger students up front, the older students in the back. We're also implementing where we go out and greet each bus that comes and just kind of set the day in motion for everybody. So that way we'll be able to kind of problem solve then as well. Which is, I think, just really working closely with the parents is going to be a major piece of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And right now you mentioned logistics, Dr. Rodriguez. So if I'm remembering this correctly, I mean, right now we have separate APs and counselors for the two pieces. So how is that all going to meld together now?
Well, they still will have their same roles.
Okay.
And the counseling center, I'm actually really excited about that piece because our new office suite has them right next to each other, their offices. And then there's just one kind of, main area, reception area. So they'll be able to work a lot more collaboratively than, the across the schoolyard like they are now. The APs are just on board for K-8. And however they can help out and support, but Dr. Larmy will continue with, 6th through 8th grade, and Ms. Dacus will do our K-5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was curious about if you were gonna do like the alphabet or.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great question. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Well, I'm excited
Okay.
to see how this goes.
Thank
and
you.
get the feedback from the parents, I think.
Thank you.
Amy's right, there's a lot of good things and a lot of comments about positive things. So
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dr. Harris.
Thank you, Dr. Harris.
Go ahead, Dr. King.
The next part of my CMI update is kind of a report on the high school, because last time I was here, the high school was about to start 4 days a week, bringing back as many students as had chosen hybrid. If you recall, we had 759 students at the high school who had chosen hybrid. In the last 3 weeks, we averaged about 400 students on any one day. Down to 290 in a certain block. It varies by block during the day as well. We start off at higher in the beginning and then it will vary. The largest block we had students was 422 kids. The lowest block we had 274 kids in attendance. So really we're averaging around 390 kids to 400 kids a day of the 759 that could attend and have been invited to attend. Class sizes are, according to Dr. Rudolph, are ranging from 5 in a class. Some have 15 in a class, but they monitor that on a daily basis as well. We've reached out to teachers. The CNI team has reached out to teachers and department chairs to find out, so how's it going with the concurrent instruction? How is it working? What kind of resources are you needing? Every department chair that responded back has a general sense of optimism at their back. They're glad to see the students there, but it is hard. I mean, it is difficult to do both at the same time. research has said this year is that is one of the, this is the hardest way to teach. And it is the, just because you've got two different mediums going at the same time and you're trying to do both, and it is difficult. Some departments are having a much harder time than other departments. Some departments say, hey, we're this is not a problem. English department says, we got this. This is not a problem. We've figured this out. PE department, very hard. I mean, because you can imagine, they're struggling to figure out how they're going to do it. Band seems to have got it kind of figured out. As we went through, science says, basically, we're just trying to kind of keep up with everything, and it's kind of it's day to day. So really, I mean, it's just, we just said, what do you need? What kind of supports are you needing? If we can try it, I mean, if we can get something for you, we can. Most all teachers said, you know, we got a couple weeks left. We're going to just try and make this happen, make this work. Basically, a couple of teachers just said, just thank you for at least reaching out and asking about us. I mean, that was really where they were at with it at that point. It just recognizing it's been a hard year with that. So we continue to help out with them. They are EOC testing right now, which kind of segues into my update on testing. So we've got two parts of testing going on right now. We've got math testing going on in buildings. We're also bringing back the virtual kids on Wednesdays, and we've got EOC testing going on at the high school. So basically, we are at Richard Green's 95% completed with testing of math testing. Belvedere's 89% tested. Conwest is 95% complete. Martin City, third through eighth grade is 96% completed. That's including in-seated and virtual. Meadowmere, 96% completed. Grandview Middle, 98% completed. I mean, they have really, I have to commend teachers and administration. They have done a fabulous job with this. Our EOC testing at the high school been more difficult. We are 72% completed with testing, and I am impressed with that. I'm just going to FYI on that. I'm impressed we've gotten to 72% completed coming in, and they're continuing to say, hey, you missed your test. Can we reschedule you to come in? Remember, the state has said if we do not get to 85% completion, we will have to reopen and do it in the fall. So that's state that is district wide. So I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good about where we are.
There's been a lot of kids coming on Wednesdays. Like, I think everyone has been pretty surprised, especially, you know, at our elementary and middle school, about how many students, because you just don't know. I mean, you hope. We did it on Wednesday for a reason. I mean, that was the schedule that the C9 team created, but you still didn't really know. I think everyone's been pretty happily surprised.
I'm very happy. As far as iReady, so when we did map, and then we kind of started some iReady testing as well. Buildings have been bringing them in. I'm not quite, I have to, when I got my iReady testing, so we just clicked on there and said, where are we on iReady testing? 71% of all buildings have completed the reading iReady testing, but only 55 have math completed. And I'm like, why did we not do it at the same time? I'm not quite sure on that, but I'll kind of delve into that a little bit more. But we're trying to get that completed as well, so we'll be able to have a full report of end of the year testing for us as we finish up. So that's kind of our end of the year report on updates on where we are with testing. The last thing I'm going to say is we've been finishing up on some of this with the building principals, and part of some of this we're talking about their 30, 60, 90-day plans, their SIP plans, and how they're finishing up, and whether they got their plans for starting next year's 30, 60, 90-day plans, making sure that there is a smooth rollover, and what we've been able to accomplish this year rolls into next year. And so we'll be able to report back on those and continuation of those and the beginning of that for you next year. Any questions I can answer for anybody?
What percent are we at for district right now? You see, so we need to be
85. So district wide, we're about 83, but a few more high school kids, we'll be all right.
Is that for all 9 through 12 or just 11 through 12?
Well, see, and I was like, that's why I had to call, we called Dusty, because I was like, if that's just the seniors, you absolutely have to take it, because you can defer the EOC. Because I was like, I could find a loophole here, we'd be good. And they're like, no, that's every kid who's taken it. If they took the class, they have to take the EOC. They're going to count them. So that was, I had to count all of them. So we're getting close. I feel I will be able to tell you next time if we made it or not, or if we'll have to open up in the fall to take, if we're to go back.
What would be the negative for having to open it back up in the fall?
They're still going to be testing on things that they just learned the previous year.
Mm.
So then now, we already have
Yeah,
concerns with them
3 months.
testing now. And now you've not been around that, whatever you're testing on for 2 months, 2.5 months. And then we're going to be testing them on stuff that they could have learned back in September or October.
I was wondering if we were gonna get dinged by death year or something like that.
If we don't do, actually, we have to fill out a report. At the end of testing, if we don't have it, we have to fill out, I have to sign it with Dusty. It says, we've agreed, we're gonna open up and these students will be tested and then we'll have to send them, they're tracking us. So
It's part of the federal regulations as well, so I mean, what our consequences could be, it's kind of hard to know, because I'm not exactly sure. There's not a real accountability score and all that stuff, but either way, then us testing kids in the fall is not what we're.
I don't know.
Definitely not ideal. I just didn't know if we're gonna count up on our APR or something else like that, you know?
No, there's not an official APR, but our scores will still be out there. It'll still all be part of that score. And again, we're always still trying to show as high possibility as we can. So it would be disappointing. And I wouldn't want that for our teachers and our staff that have worked that hard. And then this is part of their kids and their name and kind of, it's just.
I want to wash my hands of this year when it's over and not.
Amen.
There's also that, so.
Thank you all.
All right, no other questions, we'll continue on. Is there more on CNI or is that?
That is the
end of
NCNI update.
All right. Workforce excellence.
No items submitted this evening.
Thank goodness, because I can't say it.
Whew.
That's why we just thought.
You were anticipating, thank you for
You're welcome.
taking care of me like that. All right, we'll move on to resource stewardship and organizational efficiency.
Yeah, so we have an update first, talking about a staff wellness and kind of a side piece to that. That's going to be financial wellness. And so Ms. Cook.
Yeah, really excited to present this information to you tonight. We've got Janet Melton with us on Zoom. As part of our contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield, they really want us to promote wellness within the district. And so they do provide wellness funds that are available for it. And when we found out about that, we said, that's all well and good, but unless we have someone that has the expertise and the time to implement programming, we're not sure quite how that will work. So we went through CBIS, the initial process. They brought a couple candidates to us for evaluation. When we met Janet, we knew that she was the right one for us, that she blend well with our staff. And so Janet's actually been with us for 9 years as our well-being coordinator. And so she's done a variety of programming. That's part of one of the attachments. And so I'm going to turn it over to her to talk to you kind of about what she's done and talk a little bit about the proposal that's before us, which does require board approval this evening. So I'll turn it over to Janet.
Thank you very much, Anne, for the introduction. Like Anne said, my name is Janet Melton, and I have been the Wellbeing Coordinator here for the past 9 years. I want to give you just a little bit of background about the program, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here with you real quick. Okay. Get it to slideshow. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that. Go ahead and go to the program goal. The program goal for the Wellbeing Department here is to plan and implement programs, activities, and policies that support the personal efforts by the staff to maintain a healthy lifestyle. When I started this program 9 years ago, I was really focused on physical well-being. Basically, it was diet and exercise. And then about a year after I started, I found that Gallup did a comprehensive study of people in more than 150 countries and revealed 5 universal elements, interconnected elements that shape our lives. And it was at this point that I decided that we needed a more comprehensive, holistic approach to wellness. So as you can see from the attachment that Ms. Cook spoke about, I attached sample programming over the years. I've worked really hard to present a well-rounded, holistic approach to well-being. Many of the programs that I run focus not on just one aspect of well-being, but multiple aspects of well-being. I'm also really lucky to have the opportunity to get in front of staff multiple times per year at the professional development days. If you look at the bottom of the attachment, you can see that this gives me an opportunity to present the staff with a wide variety of well-being related topics. But for the objective of this board item is financial well-being. Over the past year, I've had numerous conversations that have led me to believe that a percentage of our population might be living paycheck to paycheck, or at least struggling financially. Some of the comments that I have made a mental note of, I went ahead and listed here. One employee shared with me that she is swimming in so much student loan debt that she can't even starting a savings plan. And during a nutrition consult once, an employee shared with me that buying groceries was a struggle and that it was just cheaper to eat off of the dollar menu at McDonald's. And lastly, we have a Garmin distribution program here at the school district where employees can buy a Garmin VivoFit activity tracker for $25. It retails for $80, so it's a pretty popular program. But I oftentimes have employees ask me if I can hold their $25 check until payday. So financial well-being has become a priority. And I really would like to have a year-long program so that employees can see and build sustainable progress. So we got together and decided to send out a request for proposal. And these are some of the objectives that we had on the proposal. The first we asked vendors was for a pre-planned program design with easy-to-use tools. We also asked for turnkey implementation, and we wanted a customized employee experience. Now, myself, as the well-being coordinator, I have a priority, and my biggest priority was engagement. Engagement is the hardest part of my job. Voluntary wellness programming usually sees engagement of about 20%. Depending on the program here at the school district, I can see anywhere from 5 to 50%. My goal for this program is 25% of the employee population. If I achieve this goal, I will reach 150 employees, and I will consider that a smashing success. So we had three companies respond to our request for proposal. You can kind of see on this rubric that we used for evaluations, we had Your Moneyline, Smart Dollar with Dave Ramsey, and Enrich. We had 4 committee members evaluate the RFP. And you can see myself, a well-being coordinator, and then in the upper left-hand corner, and then in the upper right-hand corner was committee member 1. And then the lower 2, the second half is committee member 2 and committee member 3. We judged each vendor based on their administrative support, program features and designs, website content, and cost. Cost for this program does not use school operating funds, and the money used is not from taxpayer dollars. Our medical provider, Blue Cross Blue Shield, provides a stipend each year that pays for all expenses associated with the well-being program. So as you can see from this rubric, if you look at the bottom of each square, you can see the total points, and you can see that Smart Dollar is the clear winner. All 4 committee members agreed that Smart Dollar was our choice. So in addition to the evaluation process and the rubric, the committee members also wanted to share a few additional reasons why we felt Smart Dollar was the right choice. The first was that they've had successful experience with school districts. Our other 2 vendors have had little to zero experience with school districts. And as we know, school districts are much different than corporate America. Secondly was ease of use. The Smart Dollar program is very easy to use. It's a step-by-step program, and each employee will know exactly where they're at, exactly where to start. And we felt like if it wasn't something easy to use, we would definitely lose engagement. And then third was references. While all the reference calls I made were positive, I do know personally of a school district here in Kansas City that's very happy with Smart Dollar by Dave Ramsey. Fourth, a proven track record. I, on a personal level, have been through the Dave Ramsey program and had overwhelming success. And I was very excited about it. And I think my excitement was contagious for my friends and family. And that is my hope, is that we'll have early successes with employees here and that their excitement will become contagious and spread. And then lastly is engagement. Starting with our presenter with Smart Dollar. Smart Dollar had us engaged from the start. They had a very impressive platform. Their videos were very engaging. And honestly, we felt that Dave Ramsey was a household name and that it would also help with our initial engagement. So does anyone have any questions for me?
I would highlight that while we will get information back, it will just be aggregate data. We will never learn personal information about any individual employee. But they may
Right.
say that new staff have reduced their debt by $100,000 over the year or something along those lines. So we will get high level data, but we will never ever know individual data, financial data on any of our employees. That was an important piece.
Yes, correct.
So as Janet said, while we're using the wellness dollars for this, we will actually write the check and then Blue Cross Blue Shield will reimburse us. So that's why it needs to flow through you, because it does exceed the superintendent's authority of $15,000.
Nick, does that cover every employee, or, you know, a lot of times subscriptions have so many licenses, would that cover everybody who wants to take advantage of?
Yes. Yeah. It will cover up to 700 employees. Even though we don't have that much, they kind of do a range. And it was like 600 to 700.
Slightly different question. Are we looking at implementing any of these possible thoughts into curriculum for the kids so they don't get into that type of debt?
Well,
We have a personal finance.
There's a personal finance class as part of the state of Missouri that every one of our freshmen, well, every graduate has to take a personal finance class. That course, even since the state of Missouri has implemented that being a requirement, has undergone several iterations and continues to evolve. So there are a lot of conversations around that. I can tell you, even being a part of saying like some of our involvement with them, where they actually take students through scenarios where they have to go around. You think about, you know, kind of the BizTown kind of approach, and this is how much money you have, and you are in this profession, and this is what, so then you have to go, you need transportation, so you go buy your car, and you spent all your money on that car, so now you can't afford, this is the only place that you can afford for rent. So things like that, but actual scenarios that kids have to go through, and so it is a part of the curriculum.
I have a BizTown that was, I'm sorry, that was supposed to start up, that they were working on, that with COVID got shut down. But they are gonna try to get that going again, where they actually go through a whole module of it, and that was gonna be pretty exciting for them.
I was asking, is that still working with that real world program as well, or is that still tying into some of this stuff?
I mean, it could. I mean, in terms of your question around the financial viability side of it, I mean, there are conversations that have outside that, but it would depend on what their pathway is going to be, if their pathway is involved in one of those particular areas.
Any other questions? One question I have, just a point of clarification. Person administrating this program would be from the company, right? Nobody district employees would be doing this, right?
Yes, it would be, it's turnkey implementation. So I would be, you know, the kind of go-between with the Dave Ramsey program, but they have the program all set up. It would be through a link to the Smart Dollar program.
I was kind of getting at the whole like district knowing the information.
They self-report
Okay.
electronically.
Yeah.
with us.
Yeah, they'll do surveys every so often as to how you're doing, what step you're on, how much you've saved or paid off, or changes in your financial status. And then that's how we get our information. Then they'll say, as a district, you have saved this much. As a district, you paid off this much debt or had this much financial change.
So is this all online, or are there actually classes they go to learn the steps? Because I'm familiar with the program, so.
It's all online. There won't be anyone coming in. It's all webinars and budgeting tools and things like that, videos. It's a fairly engaging website.
Okay, because that was maybe my next question, is any concerns with people just saying, I don't have time to watch something on a website versus them making a commitment and go to class like the traditional Dave Ramsey type thing?
Yeah, I've just noticed with us, because it's really hard to do on-site things because we have people that get out at 2:30, we have people that get out at 3, 3:30, 4, and 4:30. So it's always been a real struggle. So the online platform has always worked the best. It's completely voluntary. So if someone doesn't feel like if it's not a good time for them, they don't have to join. I'll be promoting it and supporting it, but that will be, but the actual program will be, between the Smart Dollar and the employee.
Thank you. She has a question. Hold on. There's another one.
How will you promote it and roll it out to staff?
Basically via email. I'll do it via email, and then I always go to new teacher orientation and I will promote it there. And then I will also promote it in the fall. I go around to all staff meetings, transportation, maintenance, everyone, introducing myself and always introducing the program. And this will definitely be a big push this year because it is the most expensive program I've ever run in 9 years. So, but I think it is something that is important. And I think it's something that we've been missing a little bit. And like I said, in my presentation, I've had multiple comments that's just really kind of struck me lately that this, and maybe with COVID, that this is something that we need to address.
Anything else? All right, well, since this involves money, we do need a motion.
Make a motion that we approve a subscription with Smart Dollar for financial well-being programming for an amount not to exceed $18,000.
Second.
It's been properly moved in a second to approve a subscription with Smart Dollar for financial well-being program for the amount not to exceed $18,000. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor? And any opposed? Passes unanimous. Thank you.
We'll move on to the next item where we have a transportation update. Several components as part of that, a little lengthy board item that goes through a few different things. So Ms. Cook.
Yeah, transportation, we do a program evaluation every 2 years. This is an off year for that. So, but there's been quite a few things we want to share with you. And then we do have a request as it relates to 2 job descriptions. One is a revision of an existing position, and then one is a new position that we are requesting. So Adam Schwartz is our Director of Transportation. And so I'm going to turn it over to him to present again some of the highlights and then lead into some of the operational needs that he has and the request that's before you tonight.
Good evening, everyone. I do have some kind of exciting things that we got to share and start. With being a year during a pandemic, it was kind of interesting to start some of these because it was a very slow rollout. But the first thing I want to highlight is we've had GPS on our buses. We're going on, this is our 6th school year with GPS systems on our buses, but we have a new vendor this year, which is Synovia Solutions. And that partnership also, they own the Here Comes the Bus application. So we implemented the new GPS system on all of our buses along with an electronic pre-trip. Both those items we did have with our previous vendor, but we were missing the very important part of the parent application. So this year we did roll out the parent application, which is helping us meet also one of our CSIP goals with better communication and parents being able to use an app that in real time will show them when the bus arrives, when the bus even pulls into their neighborhood, depending on what setting they choose, and also tells them when their child scans on or off the bus. One of the really unique and wonderful things about the Here Comes the Bus app is not only can parents use it, an administrator can use it, secretaries and building administrators can also use the Synovia software to see where their buses are at any time, to know when their buses are clear of students also. But the parent app itself is really cool because we call it the parent app, but it's really a student app too. The students can have it on their phone. They can have a digital ID on their phone, but we also do give them what has become we're working on making it a universal student ID. It was kind of a slow rollout this year with it being a COVID year, but all students have the same type of ID that they scan on and off the bus. And again, depending on the parent, how they set up their app on their phone, it will alert them when the student scans on the bus and scans off the bus. It also on a tablet, when the bus is stopped, will tell the bus driver if the student is getting off at an approved stop or if a student is getting off at an unapproved stop. And that comes into play, especially when we have a substitute bus driver, or sometimes our secondary friends like to go home with a friend, but they didn't tell mom or dad, or didn't have the proper authorization from the school. And it helps us track those type of things and help locate students very quickly. So that has been a great success. Those of you that are probably familiar with our past program of student tracking was called ZPass. This just has a lot more integrations with it and a lot easier end user for both the student, the bus driver, and for all our operations staff at transportation. So that has been really great. I'm very excited for next school year when, fingers crossed, that all is normal and back to our 5-day schedule where we can really get the momentum going on that parent app. We also have increased our presence on social media. We have a Facebook page. You do have the link there in the board item. It is very simple. It's at facebook.com at facebook.com and then / Grandview C4 Transportation. We have utilized that to help promote that Here Comes the Bus app, but also to relay safety information for parents, for staff, for the motoring public. I plan on doing something really big as we start up summer school. And when I say really big, safety related items, watching for our buses. Then a reminder again in August when our buses are out there, because people just, they're big yellow and have flashing lights on them, but people still do not pay attention to when our buses are stopped loading our students. And we really want to draw attention to that, share safety information for our students, for our parents, patrons, staff, and again, just the motoring public, helping keep everyone safe. So it's been a bit of a challenge to keep that up to date, but I'm starting to stop being the control freak that I can be sometimes with things and letting my staff help with that social media presence to help get those safety messages out there. The other thing that we've been working on implementing, but this is the first year that we've been able to really utilize the tool, is we have a fleet maintenance software. And it's a actual digital package where we can track the cost of repairs, not just for school buses, but for our maintenance vehicles, help us track preventative maintenance, and see what we're spending, what it costs to actually physically run each bus. We're working on integrating some more things into that, even though we have the parts, and like whether it's outsourced labor where we had to send a bus out possibly, or even we have a shop rate that we put in there, even if my mechanics are the ones that are repairing that bus or that vehicle, just to help us track on, do we have a vehicle that's really starting to eat up a lot of our budget because it's constantly having problems, and maybe it's time to replace it or take it out of service temporarily until we can figure out if there's a bigger problem of something that needs to be looked at further. As we move forward with it, our goal is to integrate both the GPS and pre-trip software with that fleet maintenance software so that it will pop up and say, hey, it's time for bus 1 to have its oil changed, or it's time for bus 1 to have a preventative maintenance program. We're working on structuring like an A, B, and C schedule of getting that bus in every so many miles or so many engine hours so that we aren't missing anything and we're not doing things. Currently, it's a whiteboard that is used to track those things in the shop. So we are working on that integration now. We will also be working on using it to track our fuel and things such as that in the future as we move forward with it. It also helps us look at driving habits and just, like I said, again, things that are really costing us maybe more money than they possibly should. And so that kind of leads us down the path. In there, you'll see a chart of our 5-year trend on bus inspections. We are definitely going in a very good direction. We're still super proud and beaming about our 100% this year. But when I look back in time, so to speak, when I started with the district, my first year here, we were at 85%. We have since pretty much every year stayed above that 90% mark, which is our goal because that's where we get our fleet excellence from. And we want to be recognized for that, knowing that we have safe school buses. But on the other hand, there's very small items that can affect that, such as a light being out. We had a loose mirror bracket one time that caused us to be deemed for just that one item, which drops your score from 100% to 96%. So we're definitely heading in the right direction. However, we still have a lot of work to do. We have some older buses, we have some newer buses. So all those things play into those factors. The amount of time my staff spends out driving, doing things that are not typically related to maintaining vehicles does take away from those things. So we've been very fortunate. I have a great staff in my shop they do a great job, but they work very hard to make sure we are ready for those state inspections. And I just want to kind of add on to that state inspection piece real quick. That is something very specific to Missouri, that inspection we go through. Not every state has this same type of school bus rigorous inspection. That is a Missouri Highway Patrol inspection that we're required. And I think Dr. Rodriguez has talked about this in the past, but it's not just like you take your car in for that inspection. Once it's so old, you have to have that inspection to get it registered. They're looking at literally thousands of items on those buses to make sure they are safe for our children. And then our mechanics also have to do an inspection on those buses prior to the start of each school year as well. The Highway Patrol inspection, for those that may not know, usually happens between February and March of every school year. So the other piece that's in your information that you have there is our fleet replacement schedule that we worked on. This is also part of our CSIP goal. We have a maintenance fleet schedule. So this is our school bus fleet replacement schedule. One of the really great and big highlights of this that I'm really excited about, following the schedule by the 2025-2026 school year, our oldest school bus on the lot will be 8 years old. And that's a really big deal and a really big sense of pride for us. Currently, our average fleet age is between 8 and 9 years old, plus or minus. But our oldest school bus that we're still operating right now is 21 years old. Our newest school bus is about 1 year, close to 2 years old now. So we have a very big range as far as the age of our buses right now. We've come a long way in the last 5 years, but we still have work to do on this. Again, that's a sense of pride, and I don't mean just for our department, that's a sense of pride for our students. Showing up at sporting events, when we're going to districts for track, when we're going to state. There's definitely a sense of pride for our students when they get to arrive in a newer school bus as opposed to a bus that's 10 or 15, 20 years old that is kind of rusty and doesn't look so great. And I really feel like it's a sense of pride for us as a district. And it's not that we can't keep those buses running, but that comes at a great expense because they need engine overhauls and refurbishments, and those things are just not cost effective. Diesels are very expensive to repair. So we are headed in the right direction, but have work to do. So very proud of this, very proud of the work that we've done. But again, we do have some work to do on that fleet replacement schedule still to get us in a really good spot. So very excited about that. The efficiency and bell time study, you have some information in there about that. That was done in partnership with me doing some of the work. TransFinder Professional Services did part of the work also. They are our vendor that provides our routing software for our school buses. And we were able to complete both a bell time study and efficiency study in preparation for this upcoming school year. So Dr. Harris talked about this a little bit, and I'll be honest, when Ms. Cook first approached me telling me about what we were thinking of possibly doing at Martin City as a K-8 building, I wasn't real jumping up and down at first because I was very, very nervous about what was going to happen with the buses. Well, sometimes having somebody else put extra eyes on what you do each day in combination with the knowledge that I had and my staff in my department had, we found several efficiencies and were able to not only be able to make that happen, but we also found some efficiencies where we can lower the number of buses that we need to run each day next school year and the number of drivers that we need to maintain our current operation. There is a driver shortage right now nationwide, and there has been a ripple effect by the pandemic. It has really put a strain on trying to recruit bus drivers, and it's not unique to Grandview. It's not unique to Missouri. It's a nationwide problem that has just been really compounded by the pandemic. So while this is not going to solve the driver shortage that we've been used to dealing with for some time, it definitely will help mitigate those things so that we can still provide services to our families, to our students, to get them where they need to be. So that kind of leads us down to the road of, we have approximately 5 positions that we will not need to fill for the upcoming school year that will result in a cost savings for the operation. But we also have some operational needs that we need to look at as well. So we would like to utilize some of those funds to help with those operational needs that we have. And keep in mind, when we talk about these operational needs, even though they have other job titles, pretty much anybody who steps into a role in our transportation department has to also be able to fulfill the criteria of a school bus driver. It's just best practice, and it is also how we kind of keep things rolling when we do run really short, because again, we never want to have to cut services to families. We want to be able to try and keep those same services going. So one of our needs is our transportation trainer is currently a 11-month employee. There is a lot of training that we do over the summer for brand new employees, because we do train our own CDL drivers. Even though we try and recruit experienced drivers, some of the best drivers we get are, quite honestly, the drivers we train ourselves, because we train them how we want them. And they start with the Grandview C4 expectation immediately when they're trained. We also have a lot of training done for returning employees. When we start each school year, there are requirements we have from various departments. DESE, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, requires certain types of training. We have a Head Start program that requires a lot of training, and lots of preparation time goes into getting ready for these. And why I help assist with all of these things and oversee these things, my transportation trainer really is the rock star of that show and makes sure things are ready. I'm very fortunate. My current trainer was also a teacher before, so she looks at things in a lesson plan way, and she's very good at aligning out what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, and executing that plan with so much finesse with our drivers and our paras and continuing forward. And then we also look at, we're wanting to do more student management training. Dr. Harris talked about students K through 8 being on the bus. I'm not overly concerned about having kindergarten through 8th grade students on the bus. What I'm concerned about is making sure our drivers are ready for that, because it's going to change the dynamic of the bus a little bit, but we're also going to have siblings on the bus. We're going to have some people that can be mentors to our students on the bus. So there's some opportunities there for us, and we need to allow those things to happen. And again, that trainer does those things. The other big thing we have that's coming up, and it's kind of, the year is wrong on it because it's called Moving Ahead for the 21st Century, and it's MAP 21 because it was supposed to take effect this past year. It is not going into effect till 2022, but it's a federal regulation that has to do with CDL training, and it is a required training. There's no option out for, just because it's a school bus driver who doesn't drive a big rig or doesn't drive over the road for something, they still have to meet those requirements. They're very stringent. It's going to require more training of our employees that we have to train ourselves that don't currently have a CDL. So there will be a lot more time that my trainer will have to put into documentation and certain regulations where we have to file things with not just the state, but with the federal government prior to them even going to take their test out on the road to get the skills in driving and pre-trip tests done to become a school bus driver. So there's a lot of need and a lot more time that will go into that. And the trainer also does help fulfill other roles as needed. Obviously, we all work together as a team. The other thing that we are looking at wanting to add and asking for is a mechanic assistant. One of the big things we're looking at is enhancing our preventative maintenance program. While, like I said, my mechanics do great work, they do a great job at the things that we take care of each and every day and keep things running. There's always room for improvement. So we would like to enhance that preventative maintenance program and accelerate it. But to do so, we do need some extra support because we've added a lot of these technologies. We have better cameras on the bus, but all those things take time and some specialized training to know how to work on them and to have the time to commit to working with a vendor maybe to support there's a camera issue on a bus, so we have to contact that vendor and work with their support to do that. Our Synovia solutions, if a tablet quits working or the GPS quits working, it may be a simple fix or it could be we're on the phone a long time with support. So we need extra help in our shop to help with all these things. We've added vehicles to the fleet. We've added some maintenance vehicles. We have added trailers. And we do have a district minivan that we take care of as well right now. And sometimes you just need extra hands for a job to help with something. This would allow our mechanics to concentrate on the more complex things that are going on, such as a project that needs to be done, repairs that need to be done. And the other thing we would like to start working towards is doing some ASC certifications to have our mechanics be ASE certified. So that's something that we look towards putting in part of our future plans. So we also have some other CSIP goals that we're going to want to work on with acceptable downtime of vehicles and things. And in doing so, by having that mechanic assistant there to help with the oil changes, a light bulb that needs to be changed, maybe just taking a spare bus out when a bus has a simple problem where it may not be able to run a route, but yet it doesn't have to be towed back. They can swap out that bus and the mechanics can keep working on a more in-depth, detailed job. So those are the highlights that I have for you tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I think Ms. Cook, I'm going to hand it back over to you for that financial piece to talk about real quick, and then I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, just on the financial piece, the cost for the recommendations before you tonight are approximately $75,000. That includes an additional $12,000 to move the trainer position from an 11-month to a 12-month position, and then $63,000, which is salaries and benefits for the mechanic assistant. As Adam shared, with the operational efficiencies, we believe they could save approximately $150,000. And we are requesting the approval of these job descriptions, which will use about half of that. So thank you, Adam. We're happy to respond to any questions.
Questions? So I have one. The $12,000 for the trainer. So right now they're 11 month, adding 1 month is $12,000. What is that $12,000 covering?
Their salary, their increased retirement contribution, their increased FICA contribution.
Okay, so a little bit of everything. It's not just their salary.
No, it's not
Okay.
$12,000.
I'll say I want to become a trainer. I'm not gonna lie. Okay.
I'm just curious, this is just more of a curiosity, education kind of question. I think it's very interesting that we have our own buses. I think that's kind of cool. And like you said, it's something to be proud of. So I'm curious, how much approximately do other school districts spend if they like hire an Apple or just an Apple bus? I'm just kind of curious. I assume there's a savings to us, so I'm just.
Yeah, there's a couple different pieces, and we've looked at that. It's been a while, but we looked at that previously when I first got in the district. But I've been in 2 other previous districts that went back and forth. When I was in Tulsa, they were doing their own and then contracted, and have since gone back to doing their own. But typically, you do spend more For the contract, the bus drivers themselves don't necessarily make as much at times. And so staffing for them can be a challenge. I think one of the reasons why my predecessor was always a real adamant supporter of it, and I am as well, is there's a sense of those employees are ours, and so they feel like they're more a part of the Grandview system as opposed to they're a contracted employee and have really no contact with anybody except through with what's happening in that organization. So the control that we have over that process, with Adam being right here and directly responsible, rather than something happened with this and we have no real control over it and we just have to go to the contractor and say we're mad about this or whatever. I think, I will put a lot of onus also on Adam, and just I think the ease at which our process works is a lot directly because of his leadership. So I think there is a cost savings for us to have our own buses in many ways, but I think that the overall savings is more of, they really feel a part of our school system. They feel a part of what Grandview is part of. And I can tell you, I think that's part of the reason why not that we haven't had challenges, but I can tell you that I've heard of school districts that they're trying to replace about 40% of their staff in their buses, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do because they can't find any drivers. And while we are always looking for more drivers, we have not had the challenges that many of my colleagues have had. And I think all that's directly related to that.
And I think, Adam's part of our administrative team, the relationship he has with our building principals, I think it's just different. I think it provides us better flexibility and control when the basketball game gets moved from today to tomorrow, when, these guys, it's amazing it's a little, go down there on a Friday afternoon sometime, you'll be amazed, but they turn some things on a dime, and I don't know that we have that same level of flexibility and control.
Consistent drivers, they get to know the kids.
Yeah.
They know their kids, they know our athletes because they're taking them all these places all the time. I mean,
Our bus drivers go to graduation
Yes.
because of our kiddos.
They do.
but I think all that's related. Ultimately, yes, I believe that we have a financial savings by not going through a contract. But I think there's a lot more components to it. If we had to start over and we didn't have any buses and we were trying to start that process, I think that'd be a difficult sell. But it's the way that we've been able to manage that. It's been really good in this district, far before me.
Dr. Rodriguez, if I can add one more thing there, if that's okay. I will say the other thing, and I think you both kind of touched on this, but the student management piece on the school bus, while we always can improve student management, don't get me wrong, driving 50 kids, 60 kids, and one adult on the bus is always challenging. That relationship that, like you said, that the drivers have with the students, but also we start building relationships at those schools. I know our principals, I talk directly to them, speak direct, and you start losing some of those things. And it is hard for me to speak about the other end of it because I've only worked for a public school district. My 20 years in transportation has always been in a public school district I used to work in a much larger school district, and I've been in Grandview now. This is coming up on my end of my fifth school year here. But it makes a difference in those relationships, which definitely impact our students. Mrs. Nash at Butcher Green paid the biggest compliment to my Butcher Green drivers that our students are getting off the bus ready to learn at that building right now. And she put that credit to me. And while, yes, I have implemented a lot of things, I have drivers who have now taken ownership of sometimes some kiddos that can be really challenging at times on the bus, but they dearly love those kids and want to make sure they're ready to learn when they get off the bus. So that ownership piece really plays a big role with all those relationships, anywhere from like students, parents, teachers, sponsors, principals. It all comes together to make a really nice fit for us.
Any other questions or comments?
I think they're doing a great job, and I think that app is awesome. I use that daily, so that's a beautiful thing.
I can tell you any number of different positives already, but You know, when we were able to start tracking our buses in that particular way, it's been very beneficial in any number of different ways. We also know how fast they're going because if you know the size of those buses, they go through neighborhoods. Seems like they're going really fast just because of their sheer size. It's real nice to be able to call a parent and say, actually, we were able to check and that bus was going 23 miles an hour through that neighborhood. We know exactly how fast that they're going. So any number of different updates, but then on the mechanic side, I can't speak enough about our guys in that shop and what they do to keep our buses going and what they've done to keep our buses going over the years. Those are the 4:30 in the morning phone calls that we're on during the winter in particular about getting our buses started. Can we get everything going and making sure that everything's starting? I mean, those are the teams that are doing those kinds of things. So this will be very beneficial to help them continue to operate our buses at a high capacity.
I want to add to that, Sam. Thank you for what you do, because keeping that type of fleet going, the maintenance, the work, those are the things that, as we call it, keeping the lights on. You don't see, but it's absolutely necessary, and they do an excellent job. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so some is informational and some does require a motion, so.
I approve you accept the updated informational and approve the job descriptions for school bus driver, transportation trainer, and mechanic assistant as presented.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to accept the updated informational and approve the job descriptions for school bus driver, transportation trainer, and mechanic assistant as presented. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate that. We'll move on to bond projects. We have several items this evening under bond projects. We'll spend as much or as little time as needed, just kind of going through a few different updates. Several things on the docket this evening. So Ms. Cook.
Well, the first one, while you're feeling warm and fuzzy about transportation, we went out to the asphalt and concrete repairs is an item that we needed to address this summer. The information shares the process that we went as far as our architects and our due diligence on our bidding procurement process. The project was structured with a base bid, which included replacement of the asphalt sections. For those of you that may not know, the parking lot for the actual buses is concrete and the drive going down to the road is concrete. And then there's asphalt sections, which is where our staff parking is. So this would replace the asphalt portions. And then in the concrete there, we need to do some joint repair and placement of the concrete drive. And then also some sidewalk replacement at the entrance of the building and improve the drainage in that area. We also asked for some unit pricing for some concrete above and beyond what was delineated in the specification at 8 inches. And then we also asked for unit pricing for concrete curb and 4-inch sidewalk, because we will be using, as we shut that area down, there's kind of an old access road. And so we'll be using temporary you'll use that temporarily. We'll have to go over a curb. The city has approved that, but they have indicated that should that get damaged, we're gonna need to replace that. And we acknowledge that, but we've taken some pictures because it kind of needs to be replaced anyway. So we believe we'll be able to do some cost sharing on that. We got 3 bids for this project that outlined on the attachment. The base bid for Will Pave was significantly lower than the other 2. We've used Will Pave on a number of projects throughout the district and been very pleased with them. In conversations with them, they shared with us, you will notice a significant discrepancy when you look at the unit pricing. Whoever was doing, math is hard, and so whoever was doing this, when converting this to square yards, instead of multiplying by 9, they divided by 9. So they submitted a bid that has extremely low unit pricing on the concrete. And Will Pave will honor that. They've sent us a letter and said they will honor that. Our challenge comes in that we are not there every day, all day while they are working. And we depend on them being a partner with us if there are areas that need to be, that are above and beyond what we have identified in the specifications, because things have changed a little bit, or for whatever reason, we need them to be honest with us and tell us that needs to occur. At that pricing where they're going to lose money, there's not a lot of motivation for them to to really share a lot of that information, and we want to do that. Plus, it's just the right and fair thing to do. So our recommendation is to accept the base bid. We are going to reject the unit pricing, and should there be a need for that, we know what their basis is, but then it will be up to our architects and engineers to determine through a change order process if that's an appropriate price within industry standards, the current market for that type of a change order, should that need arise. So that is our recommendation. As I said, we've worked well with this vendor before, out of respect and fairness for that. We also, don't want to get the recommendation and any kind of, pardon me, reputation where vendors aren't eager to do business with us. So we believe that's the best thing to do. So,
If it had been a wood structure, we might have just accepted the little bit.
For sure.
but price-
With the price of
wood,
leather.
oh, yeah, yes.
Math is first.
Math is still hard. Sorry, I got it.
Happy to
I shouldn't have
respond to
stopped her.
questions.
I shouldn't have stopped her. That's my fault.
Otherwise, we would ask that you accept the contract with Bill Pave for the transportation pavement repairs in an amount not to exceed $190,714.
Would you anticipate that, any change order will still be lower than the other two bids?
Oh, gosh, yes. Yeah, the next closest bid was $100,000 different. So, yes.
And because we've worked with them in the past, I mean, we would definitely anticipate that as well. It's been a really good organization for us to work with.
And I think also good graces, the fact that we're doing this, gonna go
Yeah.
the other one. I think they're gonna be like, no, I'm not gonna. Go too far.
Yeah. We wanted to continue a good working relationship.
I think that's absolutely amazing. Sat in meetings before where this would have been an argument, so I'm happy to see you guys doing or recommending doing what is right to do.
Any other questions? Well,
Any questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion then.
Make a motion to approve a contract with Will Pay for the transportation pavement repairs for an amount not to exceed $190,714.
Second.
Been properly moved and second to approve a contract with Will Pay for the transportation payment repairs for amount not to exceed 19714. All those in favor? Any opposed? And how do you vote, sir?
I was
Okay. Passes unanimous.
sorry. about
Thank
that.
you, sir. Apparently hand raising is hard too.
Any given day.
Uh,
Next item is a change order, so it's a little bit different than what our traditional thing would be, but I think you'll understand the rationale behind it. So let's go.
So as we've been talking with Dr. Harris about all the wonderful things that are going to be happening at Martin City with the new entry, with the new K-8 program that she wants to operate, she had another item on her wish list. Several years ago, when Martin City started getting a little tight, they converted two computer labs that were inside of the library into classrooms. The library it's a pretty large library, and they converted those labs into classrooms, and while they've worked, they're pretty small. And so she did express that she really wishes she could extend those out into the library a little bit. The library would be fine and still have adequate room, but it would really make it more like a standard classroom size. And as we talked about that, I said, right now with doing the project at the secure entry and the office remodel, you've got the trades out there. They're already on site. If we're ever going to do something like this, this is the cheapest way to do it. They're already there. So in collaboration with our architects, we met with them. They put the information out to our contractor and said, hey, what would this take? And so we have before you tonight a change order for $57,907.65 to do that work. As I say, those trades are already on site. The overhead's already there. The oversight is there. So we are requesting a change order, but it does need to come to you. But that is to extend those classrooms into the library and make them much better aligned with the other classroom sizes in that building.
Questions?
You don't have, so, no.
I have subbed in one of those classrooms before. Yeah,
They're small
they're small,
They are small.
and the library is large.
yes.
Do you have a sense or any sort of estimation if we didn't do it now, what the additional cost would be if it was done later? Like what kind of savings are we getting if we just go ahead and do it now?
Well, anytime they have to you'd have to cut, they would charge you to mobilize, they charge you to have the supervision on site, they would, I mean, so you're saving, that's what you're saving. I mean, materials costs would probably be very similar, but the fact that they're already on site, they've got the site supervision, the workers are already there. They've already mobilized, they've already got their dumpster there, I mean, just all of those things, you don't have to duplicate those costs. But I'd be reluctant to put a price tag on it.
Just curious if they mentioned it or not. Any other? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve a change order to contract with Straub Construction Company Incorporated for the expansion of 2 classrooms at Martin City K-8 school for an additional amount not to exceed $57,907.65.
Second.
Been properly moved in second to approve the change order for Martin City K-8 school. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor? I'm gonna you, sir. Any opposed? All right, passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicely done, sir. We've got the pressure relief valves up next. Again, a little bit different, but something that as part of some of the several other things that we've been doing in the district in terms of our upgrades. So let's go.
Yeah, Angela Brantley, this is her second year in the district now, and so the water pressure in our buildings is something she's wanted to take a look at. And, you know, excessive pressure coming in can put unnecessary strain on our plumbing system, cause leaks, cause ruptures, cause any number of challenges. The attachment that you have, the first attachment outlines the water pressure at all of our buildings. And it's been, Angela is recommending that at 5 of our sites, Butcher Green, Meadowmere, Martin City, the middle school and the high school, they were all identified as sites that could benefit from pressure regulating valves. So we went out and got proposals from 3 vendors, and those quotes are attached for you on attachment 2. The recommendation was made to Dr. Rodriguez to have the valves installed like quality plumbing at a total cost not to exceed $40,840. Which will hopefully save us a lot of money down the road.
No burst pipes.
Well, no guarantee, no burst pipes, but certainly,
Not for that reason.
certainly good practice and will help.
Who did the testing for the school as far as incoming water pressure?
I do not know that I know that off the top of my head. Angela worked with them on that.
100 pounds of metal is awful high.
I beg your pardon?
Said 100 pounds of pressure at metal is awful high. I don't know that our line is pushing 100 pounds of pressure at metal. Just curious, I mean, did anybody contact the water department where they did the testing to see if there was any kind of
Yeah, I mean-
issues or anything like that?
Perfect.
I mean, I can understand like the high school, this run, there's 12-inch main runs down the middle of that road. 100 pounds on a 3-inch main. The 3-inch has got to be your line, it's not ours. A little heavy 3-inch lines.
I would have to ask Ms. Brent. I've asked Ms. Brantley that. I don't have the answer, sir.
I'm just curious who did the testing.
Questions? We'll get the answer to that.
Is the concern that you think those numbers are too high?
100 pounds at Meadowmere is awful high for our water lines.
So if the numbers are correct with
We have
that,
very few pressure reducing valves and buildings. They're mainly like up on Blue Ridge and stuff in the big buildings, where they got 6-inch water lines running into them.
so is the concern that these numbers may not be correct and so we might not need
Well, I'm
reduction?
wondering if the issue is not the valve, it's because the school district owns everything from the meter to the building. And if there's an issue between that, may not be actually
valve problem, it may be a problem in your lines. Going from higher pressure.
Sure.
I mean, I'm fine with it. But I mean,
No, but I think
I want to
that,
go back to working, because they'll be able to tell me whether them lines are carrying that much pressure or not,
no, we'll still get that, we'll still get the answer to that question.
because we have to track that.
Well, even if that adjustment needs to be made in terms of what the actual valve is, we'll get that. I think the installation would probably be the same, so I think the contract amount is probably the same. But either way.
It's
we need to
never
check
a
them out.
bad thing. I mean, I was just looking at the numbers and thinking, wow.
We'll get that information to you.
Have we used quality plumbing before?
Any other questions?
I'm curious to your question. Do we think we still need it? Is my question.
No, okay, pressure reducing valves are never a bad thing. I mean, if their numbers are correct, whether it's a problem in the line or it's actually giving much pressure, it shouldn't be, it's gonna cause problems in the building.
You're kind of the expert, so we're deferring to you right now.
It's never a bad thing, because it will control the pressure in the building.
Which then ultimately controls future potential problems.
That is correct.
Okay.
We'll still get the answer to that.
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve a contract with Quality Plumbing for regulating valves at Butcher Green, Meadowmill, Martin City, Grandview Middle School, and Grandview High School for an amount not to exceed $40,840.
Second.
Been properly moved and second to approve a contract with Quality Plumbing for pressure regulating valves at the listed sites for an amount not to exceed $40,840. Any other further discussion? Not all in favor? Any opposed? I see you, sir. All right, passes unanimous. Thank you. All right. Done with bond projects, correct, sir?
We are
All
moving
right.
on to a budget update. We've been talking about this for a little while and getting some additional information, so that way we could prepare this for you and share it with you. There'll be some narratives associated with that and a couple caveats at some point in time, but I'll ask Ms. Cook to walk us through.
Yeah, so before you have our 3-year forecast, which shows the current year as well as the 3 years moving forward. Kind of to review it and for those that are not familiar with it, if you'll pull up the attachment, the years go across the top, and then as we go down the document, you'll see that in the first section, we talk about anticipated revenue adjustments in the upcoming years. Then we go into anticipated expenditure adjustments. And then down at the bottom, we look at what the impact of that is on our fund balance, both as a dollar figure as well as a percentage. I'll remind you that the board's goal for our fund balance is 18% plus or minus 20%. So
Plus or minus.
plus or minus 2%.
I was gonna say, we
I
might need to rethink the board goal.
It's a very wide range of
Math is hard. Math
-2.
is hard. It's okay.
Yeah, but I'm supposed to be okay at it. So I apologize. 18% plus or minus 2%. So a range of 16 to 20%. So the first column shows the current year because that certainly has an impact on where we'll end and start our planning for next year. You'll recall that when we started this year, we budgetarily anticipated about a $1.8 million deficit. There have been a number of budget amendments throughout the course of the year, which has put us budgetarily at about a $1.2 million deficit. I make no secret about it that I'm very conservative in my numbers. And so I truly believe that we will end the year with about an $800,000 surplus. Some of that is because we also have not budgeted for any of the CARES funding that we got that has helped support us. So at the end of this year, I anticipate we'll be at about 17.39% for our fund balance as we move forward. For next year, we have on the revenue side for increases for the next several years, we show modest increases just in the growth of our existing properties, ranging from 200,000 to 400,000 over the next couple of years. Obviously, for next year, we show a pretty large influx due to the levy increase that was passed in April by our voters of 60 cents. And then we do show a slight increase in our state aid over the next couple of years, predominantly as they restore what they've cut, and then also as we have some modest growth in in the funding that they provide. When you look at the anticipated expenditures, you will see that there for next year, those are real dollars as far as what was approved for the actual increase in salaries. And then you'll recall that for our insurance, we got that at a no cost increase for next year, which was amazing. We do, of course, will have increased costs for our retirement benefits. We have some money in there for instructional resources. And we also have a reduction in FTE based on some right sizing as Ms. Deanda and works with Dr. King and taking a look at all of the buildings and our staffing based on what our student populations are estimated to be. Moving forward after next year, we do have some increases in there for salaries, benefits, and we have increased the amount that we would anticipate paying for insurance. Pretty modest next year because that is a bid year, but then scooching that up a little bit for the following year. So as you follow that all the way through, as I said down at the bottom, it will show you our fund balances under different scenarios. The first section talks about if we are able to do reallocations for the anticipated expenditure increases, meaning that as we have new revenue, we can recognize all of it because for any increased costs, we've found another way to cover that cost within our operating budget on the expenditure side. If we're able to do that, you will see that our fund balance grows. Next year, it would end up about 21%. And by the end of the 3-year period, it would be over 23%. Without doing that type of reallocation, you will see that next year is 21%, dipping down to about 16.4% in 3 years. I will say that, we have that 18% plus or minus 2%. The getting up to 21%, I don't believe will cause anyone to ask, hey, what are you going to do with that extra money? Because we know we got that large influx and that needs to fund the type of increases that we want to have in the coming years. I will also say that I'm pretty sure that at the end of the 3-year period, our fund balance will be greater than 16.4%. But again, I would prefer to take a very conservative approach because a good surprise is okay with finance, but that's about the only surprise that you want. So that's kind of what it looks like, what we anticipate. It also does not, as Dr. Rodriguez shared earlier, we anticipate the ESSER funding. It does not anticipate the ESSER 2 funding that hopefully will be available soon, and the ESSER 3 funding that we've heard about but don't have firm information on, although Dr. Rodriguez may want to share some information about that.
Yeah, a couple different things. Number one, you see, on the salary line, just as a reminder, the 1.411 that's on there was what was approved from the Grandview 10 recommendations. So that goes into effect next year. So that's why that's a fixed number. You also see that the salaries for the following years is a static number because that has not been a conversation as of yet. So that's why that's just a static, kind of placeholder in that particular regard. They'll have those conversations next year, and a lot of things can happen between now and then as we start to, go through that process with them. So just a reminder about those, that particular piece. Also, as we mentioned before, the state did take away several of our monies at different points in time at the beginning of the year. And as I said last meeting, that was going to come back to us over the course of the last couple of months of the fiscal. So we will get more of that money next month, and that should anticipate then fully getting us back to where we were supposed to be at the beginning. So all those things are still a little bit in flux, but we anticipate all that to come back to us and be fully funded by the end of the year and into next school year. In terms of the ESSER monies, we know obviously ESSER 1, we got the CARES funds, and we took care of that. The ESSER 2 funds should be available to us by the end of the month or into the very end of May, at least part of that. That is going to be monies that will be spent over the course of the next couple of years. So we won't get all of it right off the bat. We'll get that a little bit now and a little bit as it goes along. The ESSER 3 funds are supposed to be allocated at some point in time at the beginning of next month, or at least letting us know what our allocations are going to be. And then that would be something that we would receive going into next school year. We don't know all the particulars about it. It's not a finished deal, but everything appears to be moving forward with that. Those funds are substantial. We're talking about 4.8 million for ESSER 2, and we've heard that it's going to be approximately at least twice that or in that ballpark for ESSER 3. Again, those are just estimates. We have not seen any numbers in that regard. A lot of that has to do with making sure that we are spending that money towards things that are going to have come out of the pandemic. So that can be anything from some upgrades in terms of HVAC and other things in the building, but also for instructional loss and learning loss. So how do we balance those things and look at that? There's going to be some interesting kind of conversations with our team. We've already started those conversations around what that really needs to look like and what we really want to see happen. So there'll be more conversations around that. Again, we haven't even received the money yet, but we're having a lot of those conversations about what that's going to look like over the course of the next couple of years, because again, it's not something that we immediately get and then we immediately spend all those funds. We are looking at salaries for some of that piece because that's an approvable expense. And then we actually get to use that money in a few different ways whenever we kind of make that shift. So it's still going to be very open. We're still going to be talking to you guys about it a lot. And so you'll see several things that may come before you over the course of the next year or two that are going to be specifically, this is how we used some of these funds. And we'll make sure to keep you updated around that. But in terms of our overall budget, obviously with the levy increase and everything we've done, we're in a very good financial position, as we've talked about for the last several years leading up to this point. And so I'm very excited to see how that will work over the course of the next couple of years. With this influx too, I think that's going to help us even more, as Ms. Cook always does. And I appreciate, being very fiscally conservative in terms of this number. I do think all these are going to be better than that, but I would much rather us aim low as well and kind of keep it that way. And then we can always come back and say, hey, look, this is actually where we ended up. So that's kind of where that's going to be for right now. Should be a lot of still, again, we're hearing a lot of things that this is all coming, but we haven't seen anything quite yet. But we do anticipate at least the ESSER 2 to be coming over the course of the next couple of weeks.
Any questions? So I'll ask one. On the 22-23% with the reallocations, just again, crystal ball, magic 8 ball, whatever, if we can get to that kind of a level, do you anticipate that would prevent us from having to borrow like at the end of the year before we're getting our tax revenues, which ultimately then will be a cost savings just because we're not having to pay interest on that borrowed money?
Yes, although the 18% plus or minus, the 18% really gets us very close, and then it really just depends on where Fridays fall in December. This year, we did end up borrowing a little money. It really didn't cut, we only borrow it for a few days, so it's really a pretty minimal amount.
Okay.
But, once we get past the 20, I mean, I think we'd be fine, but when we're above 20, I think you'll have more challenges with making cuts, the reallocations, when we're not in a financial crisis like we have been in the past.
Sure.
And I will mention that, in the past on our salary lines, we used to have about $750,000. We have increased that to 1.2 for the next couple of years, because that was part of our commitment was for the levy increase was to try to make sure we could attract and retain the best by making sure our competitive salary scale was competitive and stayed that way.
Sure. Perfect.
Happy to answer any questions.
All right. And I believe this is informational.
That's
It is fantastic. No vote for you, sir. All right, then we will move on to family and community involvement.
Yes, we'll be brief on this, but it's certainly something that I wanted to make sure that we had a brief discussion with the board. As part of our board policy and making sure that we're in alignment with everything in our strategic plan as well. Obviously, wellness continues to be a part of that. You are part of that presentation this evening. We have a wellness committee that obviously includes several key stakeholders within our school district and even throughout our community. So obviously, our overall goal is to implement a comprehensive wellness program that's focused on the relationship between student well-being and student achievement, and trying to make sure we understand that, but also a focus on our staff well-being as well. In the past years, certainly since I've been in the school district, we've seen a shift between not just talking about the physical side, but obviously the mental and the social and emotional side. We've talked about that several times in these presentations about how we've made that shift and things that we've included. Every year, as part of our board policies as well, we have a district-wide wellness committee. So we have our internal group that's made up of folks, and we actually go through and do all the planning. And we've updated policies this year that have come back to you in the last couple of months, and making sure that those are in alignment. And so then we also have a district-wide wellness committee, which includes a lot of our district partners and from various aspects, including Jackson County and some of our hospitals, but also some of our social emotional partners in terms of district partners like Rediscover and Cornerstones of Care. So that meeting occurred in May 13th. And so definitely was able to go through not just talking about everything that's happening in our district and nutrition and promotion and physical activities, the student well-being, staff well-being, and oversight and evaluation of how that works in our district, but also really trying to gain feedback from our community partners about what are we missing? What are the gaps here? And in particular this school year, not just number one, being impressed with our staff continuously of what we were still able to accomplish during this school year and a year that we've had, but then particularly looking forward to next school year. And what are we missing? What are we not thinking of? Because there are a lot of things that we just don't quite know are going to happen. We're going to have some of our students come back for maybe the first time in a year and a half to a school. They've been virtual maybe then this entire year or since March. And so what would that look like for them? What other, we've been talking to them via Zoom and all that kind of stuff, but being in the building, it's going to be very, very different. There's going to be some trauma associated with that potentially. There's going to be some trauma potentially with our staff. Our staff are not going to have classrooms that looked like that since before last March. So thinking about their well-being as well as how's that going to look and how's that going to feel for them. Those are the kind of conversations that we had at that particular meeting and gaining input from them so that we can continue to go back with our teams and look at the different supports that we need to put in for next year. So parents are on that as well. Certainly board members, pleased that our board president was able to attend and going through all that component, taking all that input, but it's an outstanding group that works incredibly hard. And again, just listening to all of them give the updates of the things that they accomplished this school year was so impressive. It would have been impressive in any year, but especially in this school year, it really was impressive. Again, our staff is amazing when you think about every single level and what was done. So that's kind of that in a nutshell. I just wanted to make sure and provide that update to you. And it was a very, very good meeting. And I'm very, very proud of the work that we've done around wellness in this school district. I'm very pleased that it continues to be part of our strategic plan. Kathy, I don't know if you want to add anything or certainly add anything as well.
You wanna start? Yeah, I did get the opportunity to go to that meeting, and first of all, I just want to say thank you for your leadership on it. I mean, you could tell you're very passionate about it and very excited about it, and so I appreciate that. I did enjoy hearing about some of the programs that have been happening, not only with Janet and some of the things she's been doing with the staff, but then Mary brought up some things that she's been doing, and then Dana brought up some things that she's been doing and the PE's been doing, and they've been sounding like a lot of fun. And I don't remember PE ever being that fun before, not gonna lie. So I just enjoyed hearing everything and then seeing all of the folks from around the area that were involved. So thank you for your leadership on that committee.
They were talking about, we have the garden beds up at the high school, and they've been working on those, and I think it was in the good news about their lettuce party. So that was part of their presentation as well as talking about the things that were going on and how we involve the students in the process, and the kids had a really good time with that as well. So
Any questions? All right, that is informational. We can go on to the next thing then. Strategic governance.
Yeah, put the onus back on you guys for a little bit. So board committee assignments.
Yes. All right. Ms. Myers, we have some committee assignments, some that people have already said they would want to be involved in. Do we need tonight to fill out the rest of the spots?
Yeah, I think if anybody wants to volunteer, we can just go down this list.
Okay.
First item would be get someone volunteer for Graham 10, so we're looking for someone else.
We need a second person. So Grandview 10 does typically meet during the day a few times a year, correct?
Several times.
I think most of the meetings are on Friday. for about 3 hours.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they start the year by
That
trying
year.
to set the schedule with everybody, what works best, and kind of come to some consensus there.
Typically all day.
All day meetings, okay? So we need 2 per our policy, correct?
Yeah, we have one already.
Anyone interested in doing that?
It's
Great
a
way to
really
learn. and get
interesting
feedback.
committee. It's a very interesting committee. I'm just campaigning for.
We can parking lot it for a second and move on and come back. How about that for a second? Because I know it's a big commitment for during the day. So let's skip that one for a second and go to the audit committee. We just need 1, correct? All right, thank you, Dawn. Wellness program, which is the meeting we were just talking about. It was an hour, one time a year, right?
Yeah.
One time a year, for an hour. It was a little bit longer than an hour. I had to head out, but not much. Anyone interested in that one? I think it's more informational from the board perspective.
It usually is.
Don't all jump on it at once.
I think it was at 1:15.
I'll do it. I'm gonna know.
Thank you, Kara. All right. Finance waiver, do we need 3?
2,
2, okay?
because we have one, the treasurer.
We'll need 2 more.
Yeah.
Right, okay, 3 total. And this is typically means
Half
when?
hour. Half hour.
Half hour.
Yeah, knows better.
Preferably.
It's every month that well, historically it's been the Tuesday.
Oh, it's a Tuesday.
finance
Oh,
committee.
okay, I was thinking it was something else. Okay, so yeah, so Tuesday
Finance
at
committee.
5:30, once a month. Okay, thank you, Dawn. Need 1 more. See, we're all excited. to do
Now
these
we need the
committees.
music.
Start singing.
Right. Okay, we can table that one for a second again, or as well. Community engagement communications.
More informational again. There could be some additional pieces this year as we look at a couple different things, but usually it's done via email or just gaining input. So it'd be fairly minimal in terms of time effort, so to speak.
Meetings typically when?
It would depend on what's going on. There's not a regular component to that.
Okay. Any takers for that? An informational.
I'll volunteer for that.
Okay, thank you. Skipping down, we've already got Parks and Rec and GEF. Technology. Thank you, sir. Continuing that.
And advise that we change the PCs again.
And he's gonna get shut down again. All right. Guidance advisory. And this is a courtesy, again, I think informational. Is that correct?
Yes. Minimal time involvement.
Like minimal time. Any volunteers for that one? Okay, we'll skip to the next one. 15.
15 is usually every other, about once a month.
Once a month.
Ish.
That one's gonna be really fun over the next year.
For the bond project.
Oh, yeah.
Facilities improvement team traditionally meets about 3:30. It's about an hour long. We've usually met obviously here in the boardroom in past years. It's been via Zoom for the last year. But again, this is, so like today we met and actually physically talked about the improvements and looked at our list again of the years for the next 3 or 4 years and what that kind of may look like in terms of when we would do certain projects and trying to prioritize. So it's other projects that may come up, but every single time it's talking about all those projects. So yeah, that list is a little longer than it usually would be with $45 million bonds. So it's going to be pretty interesting over the course of the next couple of years, but traditionally once a month for about an hour is the meeting.
I'll do it. All right, thank you. Pat United Way. I can tell you, I've been on this committee for 3 years. I don't think we've actually met once. I think it's just an if you need to go, or it was maybe I couldn't go at the time. I don't remember. So, anybody have a burning desire to take over that committee? I see eyebrows raising. I see people not looking at me. So I guess I go for that again. A+ program. Oh, Leonard. All right. Thank you, sir. No, I was avoiding eye contact then. The next one is a new committee. Kathy, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, policy review. I had a board member serving on this in the past. It really is basically a self, it's online, do it on your own time. Policy review. We generally get issues from MSBA once or twice a year that may have 10 or more, or 10 or less sometimes, but I'd say average about 10 policies, a few administrative procedures and forms. And so what we look to do is get input from various groups. It's nice to have a board member on there. It's not a must, but I think it's a good idea. I seek out a certificated employee, a classified employee, and an administrator to assist providing input for those groups. And there's not too easy board solutions, meeting module, do it on your own, have kind of a deadline so we can, cabinet can then review it and make recommendations as to putting them on board apps. Right now, we have 10 out there, but I hope to have as many as possible for the 2 meetings. So time-wise, it's can be time consuming to read some of those policies, but it's a good way for board members to get familiar. And I think it's good for to have your input. So that's why I had it.
Way to learn policy.
Yep.
You want to have burning desire for that one? That's kind of on your time, but within a time frame, right? So
Right.
like you can,
Usually
bedtime reading.
just a couple time periods during the year. There's an occasion when the district might change 1 or 2 policies here or there, but usually these are the MSBA issues.
Interested in that one? No one's looking at me. I'll take it. I know, right? I'll do it, because we don't talk enough, Kathy.
That's okay.
All righty, last one on the list before we circle back, Kansas City Council ordinance.
It's usually pretty minimal as well. There's usually input given. Usually we have a CO representative. A lot of times that's the person sitting in that seat with finance and facilities, obviously. So we usually attend a lot of those kinds of things if we're brought to our attention. It's not it's random because it depends on what projects are coming up and what's happening and what people are requesting. So it's really not probably a large time commitment. I would say it's sometimes it's just input being given.
And a lot of them, that's the actual TIF commission. We haven't had a TIF project in a while.
It's been a while, so it's one of the things we have one, but I think it's another one of those. I don't know that we've had a meeting for at least 2 years.
So it looks like Chuck was listed last year. Is it traditionally the treasurer that is on that one?
I don't know that it's always been that way necessarily.
Not necessarily, again, that's one that would take place during the day, so I think sometimes it's availability. Like I say, the Kansas City TIF Commission, it's been, I really don't recall the last time we had a KC TIF.
You can sign into it.
Thanks, sir.
If there is, we'd let you know. We got plenty of notice and things like that, but I would anticipate a lot. There's,
They've been using other
yes,
incentive mechanisms.
tried to turn a little bit of that on that, thankfully. So.
All right, so I think our gaps are Grandview 10, wellness,
Fine. Better wellness.
so,
Kara.
oh, Kara's doing wellness, never mind, sorry, that's right. So Grandview 10, I didn't really forget about you, I just didn't write it down.
These are the finance person.
We're missing one finance, yep, community
Guidance.
engagement and guidance.
We got community, we have Gravy 10 finance guidance and PAT. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, you can put me up for PAT, that's fine.
I got a bartering situation. Dan, did you set up for the community engagement?
Yes.
I'll switch out, I'll take that one from you if you don't mind, since you signed up for like 19 others.
Okay.
All right. So do we send out this list and say people think about it, or do we need to decide
We can
tonight?
do that in the interest of time. I guess I would say I'm a little surprised that some of these where you noted that they haven't met or not much, that someone didn't just jump all over that. I understand why a couple of these that are a little more time consuming need to think about, but I would say you need to put a deadline on it, so we can, if no one commits to these between now and next meeting, then we'll probably sit here until we have it, till we have some commitment.
Could you go over that? I apologize, I was gonna write them down, but I didn't. Could you just, I know
Grandview 10.
Grandview 10.
Gravy 10, finance and guidance. What I have.
Did you, which one did you just take, Leonard?
The community engagement.
She was hot back there.
Finance, and what was the last one?
Guidance.
I've been on it for I don't know how long, and I've never heard of it, so I would say that was a pretty whatever.
Are you volunteering for guidance?
Sure.
Okay.
I think it's an all day thing, that's kind
It is, it's an all day thing.
of hard. Is it?
Spring, in spring, mostly in spring.
Okay, so we will need a finance, it would be beneficial to have somebody for the finance committee for the June meeting. So don't have to necessarily do that now, but I'll probably hound you.
So sometime in the next 2 weeks, then,
Yeah.
if we can, maybe if you're interested potentially in doing the finance committee, meets on Tuesday for no more than half an hour, maybe send an email to Kathy?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
I can, I mean, I've done it before, so it's, if I can do that one, I should be able to.
Awesome. So
Thank
then
you.
we just need to think about Grandview 10 and because that's a multi-time, time-consuming thing, I think you can.
I may do it. I'm gonna talk with Miss.
Okay, let's take a little time for that one. So thank you very much.
You want to trade with fit, because I was thinking about it, it's just I gotta look at my schedule, but if you decide to do Grandview 10, and I'll trade you fit if you want.
We may negotiate.
All right.
All right, so let's set a
Deals
soft
being
deadline
made.
of 2
Love
weeks
it.
from today. We'll try to have these delineated out versus next board meeting. Okay. So maybe if you haven't heard from people, we'll send out a reminder about that in 2 weeks. Okay. All right, moving on. Next thing, policies on first reading.
Just have a couple or one policy, I believe there, GBA.
Yeah, this is a policy that MSBA sent as an update. Some time ago, we needed to make some changes in our operations in order to be able to comply. So you may remember that about a year ago, you approved Time Clock Plus as a way to track non-exempt employees that are classified staff. time and overtime and leaves and so forth. And so we have all of this year been just now actually been implementing, putting it in place. And so the tail end of this year, classified staff is being trained on that process. So the purposes behind this are pretty important. It's, I mean, for the classified staff, I would just speak and say it's sort of a change you got to get used to. But it is the better way to actually track and make sure that our hours are accounted for and that we get paid properly. Additionally, for the district, if there's ever an issue, we need to make sure we're complying with fair labor laws. And so good reason for it all the way around. So this policy now we can implement and are in compliance. And so it's on for first reading for you and be on for second reading.
Anything to add? We've gone through that whole process, but we've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah, we have been talking about this for a while. This is really a policy to protect ourselves as well as our employees. And we have taken a risk for a long time. We've talked about this with you before. And Ann's team with Alonia, we've done a lot of work on this. They've done a lot of the back work, and we have been training all of our employees this week. It's a lot less complicated than they thought it was, and they're getting used to it now. So I think that by the time the school starts next year, it'll just be seamless. So.
And we talked about this with Time Clock Plus when we brought that to you guys. And so this is now that we have those things, now we need the policy to be updated. So.
Any questions? Alrighty, this does require a motion.
Move that we approve revisions to policy GBA on first reading as presented.
Second.
Properly moved and second to approve revisions on policy GBA on first reading as presented. All in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimous. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. All right. It's our show now. Board member reports. Anybody have anything they want to share?
Yeah, I just have a couple of things. If you didn't get a chance to participate in cover to cover and volunteer, put it on your radar for next year, because it's great to watch those kids get those books that they.
There's a bunch of opportunities next week to sign up.
There are.
Yep.
And I know Dawn's wife brought a bunch of people from her job, so if you have people at your job, think about signing them up. So GEF, appreciate your help with that. It's one of our better programs. And then on behalf of the Employee Recognition Committee, I want to thank you that participated in distributing the pins. It was my pleasure to be a part of telling every single employee you are the employee of the year, and to see the look on their faces. Even though it was a gesture, they still appreciated it. And we appreciate central office and the board members participating in that, because it meant a lot to those employees. And then also for your participation in the retirement ceremony that we did, which went on pretty well, I thought, all things considered. So,
Perfect.
that's it.
Yes. So I got to participate in that, and my favorite part of the day of the distribution of the pens and that was my son coming home from the middle school and saying, "Were you at the school today?" "Yeah." "Did you talk to all the teachers in this pod?" "Yeah." "How were you there? They all said that you were there, and you were there." And it was like so horrified that I was there, and they all knew I was there, and it was the best part of my day. So thanks for letting me be a part of that. So, all right. If there is nothing else, we only have one more item to go.
Make the motion to be adjourned.
Second.
Probably moving to second to adjourn. All in favor? Thank you very much. Unanimous.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh.